Welcome to Zoom O'Clock with your host, Tessie Anthony de Nassau. This podcast brings you enlightening discussions with leading experts and public figures directly to your ears.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Zoom O'Clock with Tessie Anthony de Nassau and my wonderful, wonderful guest today, Olivia DeRamus. So Olivia and I go way back. Olivia and I, we met because she did an internship with me, a personal internship with my work, but also she came into my life at one of my darkest times, really, when I was going through my court case by myself as a litigant in person for my divorce. And Olivia was there day and night to help me with my court papers. And I remember we were printing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of papers and compiling them and putting them in bundles. And you were just there when I was sad and frustrated and just really didn't know what's happening. And I want to thank you for that as well publicly, because you have been such a strong force for me at that time. And I know that at the same time, you yourself went through something incredibly horrible, if I may say, yourself in your private life. And we're going to talk about that as well in depth today, about your story and how it has made you be what you are today and also do what you do today. So welcome, Olivia.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, it's such a pleasure to have you today, especially today is my birthday. And yes, we do work on birthdays, but I really wanted to do this Zoom O'Clock with you specifically today because, our friendship is so wonderful and I'm so happy to see you again and that you're doing so well now. So let's dive into the topics. So there's a topic which is not that celebratory, and it is a reality to millions of women out there around the world. So your story, dear Olivia, please tell us a bit about you and the story that I am mentioning, but I want to hear it from you. Please tell us about your path, what has happened, and how was that for you to experience this, and where was the injustice?
Okay, so let's see. Okay, well, it started in California. I was a freshman in college and I was sexually assaulted. But the story really starts after that because I reported my assaulter. I won 2 university tribunals. And despite that, he sued me for defamation in court for millions of dollars. And it lasted for the majority of my adult life. It's over now, but it was going on while I was working with you, Tessie. And during that time, I couldn't talk about what was going on with me. I couldn't write in a journal. I couldn't access mental health professionals because anything that I wrote or said or did to anyone, could have been used against me in court. And he really used the law in a extreme effort to silence me, and it was essentially an extension of his abuse. You can't get over a car crash if it hasn't stopped happening, is how I describe it. So, what was originally a sexual assault, which is bad enough in itself, was extended into years of trauma. While trying to get through university, trying to start working, get out there in the workplace, all of these things became really difficult. And I kept waiting for the justice system, in America to protect me because I had told the truth. So I thought, they would say, you can't do this to her. This is unlawful. But apparently that's not a law. Like, it's not a law in the United States that you can't sue your victim in an effort to silence her. And so what I found out through this process is that this is an increasingly popular tactic for wealthy abusers to silence their victims. And it's so effective, so nobody knows it's happening. And I'm very lucky in that I could afford to defend myself. I spent upwards of $100,000 in legal fees. Most people in America or anywhere can't afford to defend themselves like that. And so they're often forced to sign gag orders. And I really learned the hard way that freedom of speech is, not the inherent right that they say it is. It's really seems to be, only something reserved for wealthy white men in America, at least. So, I've gone on to do some pretty great professional stuff as a result of that. But that story is really kind of what's led me down, the path that I am on today, and trying to, solve this problem, or at least talk about it, because so many people who experience it can't. And I'm hoping to change the law, at least on a state basis, because Donald Trump's in power right now. I don't know what's happening on election day. But I believe that even if he gets reelected on a state basis, at least in California, there's potential for laws to change and all that stuff. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Wow, it's really terrible, and it's crazy that, and when you say it's, your question to the system, is freedom of speech really just for the wealthy, has made me think, because, you and I know a little bit what I went through in court, and without going into details about my story, but I do agree with you that people who have money, they just have more rights. They just get away with so many things, and use the desperation really of other people. And also, as you say, the lack of resources to really get their way with gagging orders and other things. And I think it's just, it really breaks my heart to hear that you needed to go through that, specifically in America, which praises itself with the slogans, "We are proud to enforce freedom of speech for everyone." So how then, when you were in court, because I do remember as well that you needed to face him, and and he was it was just absolutely. And I remember you really being shattered at home. You couldn't really work for me at all at the end, because you just said, "I am just physically unable to do it," because you were completely burned out, the candle on both sides. And it was just, they forced you to still interact with him. And how was that for you? And how did it feel at the end? What happened at the end? What came out at the end?
So I'm kind of limited in what I can say. I can say that the legal process, it's not like it was in Suits. At first I was like, oh yeah, I can defend myself. I'm in the right. I'm going to have these witty, like Meghan Markle in Suits, she was always having those witty clapbacks, right? And I really thought it was going to be like that. Like they might beat on me, but I would be able to defend myself. I'm sure Tassie, that's not the case. When you have to prepare for these depositions, for months in advance, and you're constantly being questioned by your own lawyers because they're trying to prepare you for the horror of the other side deposing you, where you're on camera and they can ask you anything they want. They can insinuate anything they want. They can insult you. They can, bring up anything, your sexual history. They can imply that you're, I don't want to say any bad words, but they can imply that you're overly promiscuous. And really, really deeply hurtful things. And you have to sit there and take it. You can't defend yourself. And to this day, I don't understand why you can't defend yourself when you're in this position, but you can't. And so while, I never had to directly speak to him, the his very, very expensive and aggressive legal team did more than enough damage. And that was certainly the point. And I want to say more. I'm just trying to figure out what I can, because, I can talk about what happened to me in general terms, but, I do have some limits, I think for obvious reasons. And, I didn't have to, he was as he was asking for millions of dollars. I didn't have to exchange any money. And it was resolved. But would I say that I'm trying to figure out how I can phrase this and not get in trouble. But yeah, it was resolved, and I'll leave it at that for obvious reasons, but I wouldn't say that the court protected me. And I hope that people can read through the lines there. But I wasn't found in the wrong either. So as you can tell, I'm very lucky that I can talk about it at all, but there are some constraints. And I think that also speaks to, this issue that we're talking about, in that, again, I'm a very privileged person. And if I have constraints now, even though I didn't do anything wrong, what would have happened to the many women who go through this and don't have the privileges that I have? You know what I mean? I mean, they wouldn't be able to sit here and talk about it at all. So I can't really answer that question as much as I want to, but I hope that gives some insight at least.
No, for sure. And it makes me almost angry that when, just hearing this, that as a woman who went through all of this, that you are the one that still needs to be quiet, that you are not allowed to talk about this, even though, as you said, and rightfully so, you were right. You were the victim, and you were the one that this happened to. You didn't ask for this. And it's shocking. And I leave it there because it makes me really angry. And I have these films coming into my head of what happened to me in court, which there was some crazy stuff like that as well. And it's just, it just makes me really sad because, we trust into the system, and yet the system accommodates to the few. Which, sadly, let's leave it there, but this is sadly still what is happening in developed countries. So imagine how the women are feeling as well, and how they are being treated and misabused and shamed, really, for someone else's bad actions in developing countries, So, I think your voice is really important, and you have my full support. I think you're absolutely incredible. You're so inspirational. You're so strong. You came out so strong as well. So now moving on where you are now, because I am following you. And guys, please do go and see Olivia's blog and her website and her publications. So she is the founder of a new magazine. So can you tell us a little bit about your new adventure? What is it? Why did you create it? And what is it there to do?
So I was really thinking about this kind of towards the tail end of my experience that we just went into. And it was really when I realized that I couldn't find anyone to help me. I feel like that actually sounds so dark, but it was true. And I really had to get creative with how I was going to empower myself again, because the whole time I kept thinking the courts are going to re-empower me, or someone would help me. I would find someone who could help me. And, of course, my parents wanted to help me. My lawyers wanted to help me, but they couldn't stop what was happening to me. Right. And, if someone isn't experiencing it, there's only so much that they can understand. Right. So I couldn't find any of that. I couldn't find support from a medical person. I couldn't find support from friends because, again, the more I told other people, the more danger I put them in and myself. So I was like, how can I get creative in feeling good again? And so I thought that maybe if I platformed other women's voices, because I think that a lot of the parts of my story are actually all of it is extremely universal, then maybe I could speak through them and through platforming them, and that maybe I would feel better by indirectly speaking through them. Because also I think that you don't realize how important being able to express yourself is until you lose that ability. And so, it started off really small. It was really a desperate experiment at first. It's caught on, and it's, we've had a lot of success. It's been a little over a year. And so it started as, an online platform, and it's really evolved because once we started getting progress, the legal battle ended. I was able to start really thinking about how what I was doing was helping women, and how I could actually best help women, knowing what I know from my own experience. And so it was originally called Restless Magazine. Now we've kind of renamed to Restless Network because we recently launched an app. And so we're still an online platform. We're still an online women's magazine. But I'm really excited about this app because, it's never been about making a traditional media business. It's always been about, how can I take my experience and make it something good come out of it and something helpful. And so what I realize is that, women don't need me to be talking at them. Women need a place where they can talk to each other and, support each other and share their experiences. Because, I was originally taking it through article submissions and sharing them on the website, and I'm still doing that. But I'm really excited about this app that we have because they don't have to write an article. They can just do it directly, one-on-one in the community feeds. And it's this really, really cool kind of, I don't know what the word is that I would use, maybe holistic way of empowering each other, because you don't have to have your story approved by a publication, a mainstream publication, or even Restless. You can just express yourself in real time, and in real time have people support you back. And so it's really exciting. And, I'm really excited to hopefully use my negative experience to create a business that's actually helpful to women. And so we're called Restless Network, and it's very exciting.
Wow, that's amazing. I will download the app today. I think it's so amazing how you have come around, and you have always been a strong woman, and you're just so positive always. Like, even just talking, this is also the Olivia I remember. You were always smiling. You were always trying to do the best of everything. And you're just such a delightful human being. So tell me, how can we listeners contribute other than to the app, and where we can express our stories, and where we can really, say it as it is? But what else do you need? What else? What would be your biggest dream if you would have a magic wand?
Well, my biggest dream right now is really growing the community on the app. We are almost at 10,000 users, and that's on a super bare bones budget. So that's really exciting. And the thing is, it's not all about numbers, right? It's about building the right community, and a community that cares about each other. But the more people we have on the app that cares about the other users and the other members, the more effective that community is. And the more life experiences we have to support, the issues that anyone on the app is going through. So, right now I would say on average, we have a multitude of topic sections, but the one that's closest to my heart is the Me Too section. So on average, someone posts a problem that they're going through, they want advice on. In the Me Too section, we have, anywhere from 5 to 15 comments, and they're great, like paragraphs, and they're really thoughtful, and it's amazing. But imagine when we have like 20,000 or 100,000 even, like it's gonna explode, and it's already so helpful. But again, it's just people finding out about us, and again, the right people, the people who care, and participating in this community. The more that happens, I think the more magical it's going to be. And so it's really, if people like what we're doing, the best thing to do is download the app, participate, share your life experiences with the other users, because one person's experience is another person's roadmap to healing. And I really believe that. And I think that that's used in practice in the app all the time. So, sharing it on social media, telling your friends about it. My ask is very low. Just download the app and discuss with other people and tell people about us.
Well, that is fantastic. I will make sure I put the link as well below your video, and do send me it as well over WhatsApp, please.
Yeah.
So we have run over time already, way over time. It's just so fascinating, and everything you have to contribute. So another last topic I want to leave you with, and I would like your advice, specifically also for the platform, because I think the platform is also can also be used as a tool to inform our leaders and our institutional leaders and people who write policies and laws. So I think it's a very, very, very powerful tool you're having there, and it's so timely and it's so important. But with that in context, then, as we are going through the second lockdown now in most of the countries around the world, Corona is peaking again, and it's desperate times for a lot of people. The economy is not well, socially we're not well, health-wise we're struggling. But one topic which often gets forgotten among many, right? But one topic is domestic violence. So domestic violence, meaning that domestic violence has peaked. I have seen articles written in Luxembourg. So it has peaked in Luxembourg, which is a very developed country, right? So I'm sure in the US as well, and in developing countries and all over the world. So where the woman is really, mostly women, men are also experiencing that, but mostly women are being stuck with their perpetrator and are just being abused continuously because they can't leave. They need to stay there, right? So what would you like to see through your platform, through your work, through your story? What is your message to policy writers, to lawmakers, to people who have the power to change something, to protect these human beings? With your voice, what would you like to see, and what is your message to them?
I'm so glad you brought up this issue. In the first lockdown, we had a writer talking about this exact problem. And she was talking about how the UK government did this whole social media campaign, and that's great, but there's no action behind it. And we don't want social media campaigns. Actually, we need action, right? We need specific policies in place. We need, safe places for women to be able to go, outreach programs. We need it to be easy for women to leave, right? And, I think that so many governments, not just the UK government, the American government as well. And, the only two governments I can speak to are the American and British governments. I now live in England. But so many governments really expect like the nonprofit sector or the private sector to protect women and to supplement their failings. And I think that that's a really terrible attitude to have when it comes to these issues. It's their responsibility, to protect the most vulnerable of our populations. And I really just don't think that that's a priority for them. It's ever really been a priority for them. And I think that they really need to have an attitude shift and not just give themselves a pat on the back when they produce a viral media campaign. And hey, I run a media platform now, so I know that media can be extremely effective, but I also know its limits, right? Because I see women on the app all the time talking about these kinds of issues, and there are things that Restless can do to help, but there's only so much we can do because we aren't the government, right? We don't have the funding that they do. And I see us as hopefully, a balm to these many issues until the government really steps up to the plate. So I really think that it comes down to action that I really don't see from them yet, from really most governments. I'm trying to think of an exception. I don't have one.
No, you're right. Absolutely. Another topic that just came to my mind, which I think is really important as well, is, and it was shared by a lot of care workers in the hospitals, for example, where people said, now for the second lockdown, it's enough clapping. We don't need clapping. We don't need campaigns. We don't need planes flying over with the national colors to say thank you to the NHS or other care workers. We need money. We need resources to accommodate what we need to take care of the sick. And, maybe if someone is listening who is working in that, instead of clapping and putting a video on your social media that you're clapping for the NHS, taking the UK as an example, maybe each person who claps can donate a euro or a pound. I think that would go a long way. And I think that would be much more needed. Just to go with your point, the words are great and the social media campaigns are fantastic to raise awareness, but there needs to be actions behind it attached as well. And I hope that as well for that topic on, how to accommodate the sick, because we are going into the flu season as well. And Corona, you can get Corona while having the flu. So you can have the double illness. And the hospitals are preparing. It's really terrible, right? Like in Luxembourg, my mom said yesterday she was in the hospital for an MRI. And she said, the hospital's psychiatry ward, for example, is now being considered to be built into spaces for the sick. And I think, we really need to brace ourselves, but we also need the funding. So, as we said, maybe instead of clapping, donate to your local hospitals. Because they need the money more than the clapping. I think we leave it there because we could talk forever. I think you're just an amazing human being, Olivia, and I'm so blessed to have you in my life. We will talk offline definitely more. I will share the link of your platform, of your app, and your bio for people to reach you as well. And I cannot thank you enough for speaking up the way you do with such elegance and positivity and strength, because millions of women need that. And you are doing exactly that. So thank you so much for the work you do to make a difference in the community you live in and around the world.
Oh, thank you so much, Tessie. That's such lovely things to hear. I really appreciate you having me. And, in turn, I've learned so much from you, and I'm such an admirer of you as well. And yeah, so lucky to have each other in our lives, I think.
Absolutely. So to more woman empowerment, woman with woman. And we keep speaking offline. You definitely have my full support. And I'm sure a lot of people who have listened to this will come back to either you or me to wanting to hear more. So be ready for that. And until we meet again, I send you much love. Stay safe and healthy. And thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much, Tessie.
Thank you for listening to this Zoom O'Clock. We hope this discussion was insightful and has provoked some new ideas for you. Please share and subscribe. If you like to keep in touch with your host, you can find her on Instagram under Tessie_from_Luxembourg and on Twitter under Tessie_DE.